name's Ketevan. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing the tag What Makes a Classic a Classic with a little bit of twist. Erin tagged me in this tag, I think at least a month ago. It was a while ago. And when I watched the video, I was like immediately like, wow, this is a great tag. I'm excited to do it. And then I just had like decision fatigue around it. So I decided to put a little bit of twist and only choose books I actually haven't read, which is probably the antithesis of the point of this tag, but I'm making this year all about clearing my TBR, and I'm actually doing pretty good on the classics. I really thought I would kind of slog through the classics a bit, as they're not like my go-to genre when I just randomly want to pick up a book, but I think I've done pretty well clearing a lot of them off of my shelf, but I still have quite a few to go. So I thought I would focus this as much as possible, the books on my shelf. That was actually my original plan, and then I realized there aren't actually that many classics left on my shelf because I purposefully haven't been buying them because I'm like, I have so many classics, why do I need more classics? Unless I find a really good deal, of course. But so yeah, so then I expanded it to books that I definitely want to read. Like I maybe don't have a copy of them, but I definitely at some point want to read them. So here's my list. So we'll just jump straight into the prompts. Number one, the one with a gripping plot and universal themes. So for that one, I chose Arabian Nights, or 1001 Arabian Nights. This version calls it Arabian Nights Entertainments, which I think is a bit of a weird title, but it's the Oxford World Classics. I'm super happy I got this remaindered copy for quite cheap used, or I guess not used, but you know what I mean? It's remaindered. And it's not actually one big story, even though it's a chunker. It's a bunch of different short stories. So it's they're all short stories, but they all are very like action based from what I'm told or what I've read about it. And they're very like story based with like lots of stuff going on. So I'm not sure how I'm gonna tackle this one, if I'm gonna just try to read a little bit at a time or just go in one go. Obviously this is an ultra classic and I definitely want to get it under my belt at some point, TBD on exactly when and how, but I'm definitely excited to get to it. And then number two, we have the subversive one. I don't have a copy of this one, but I gotta tell you, I have not read so much about a book that I've never read before, and that is Lolita. If you're in any sort of book groups, you know that this is like the one book that will instantly cause an argument. And I mean, again, granted, I haven't read it, so I'm not sure. Maybe there is more maybe there is more to it than I'm aware of, but essentially I feel like most people, when they read it, they don't actually get it, and then they just get upset because they think Nabokov is promoting pedophilia, when I think it's pretty clear, again, haven't read it, but it's supposed to be pretty clear that he does not approve of it, and he is critiquing it, right? So I do want to read this just to get what he's saying, and of course it's supposed to be a great book, beautifully written and things like that. But yeah, definitely controversial when it came out, still controversial today, but I think it does serve a purpose. And the subversive value of this book is that it lays out this disgusting man's inner thoughts and his inner dialogue out for us to see, so we can see what these people are thinking. But I'm definitely looking forward to reading this one. Number three, the one who defines a time and place. So for this one, I have The Interesting Narrative and Other Writings by Ulada Equiano, I think is how you say his name. So this is his autobiography or memoirs, and it just kind of goes over his whole life. He was enslaved when he was 11 years old, worked in the UK or on British ships until he was able to purchase his freedom, and then he worked on plantations in Central America, and then he also worked in Sierra Leone. He ended up marrying an English woman, became a figure in the anti-slavery movement. Like, obviously this man's lived a really cool, like, different kind of life. Cool, that's the wrong word. Is even interesting appropriate? Unique, that's the word. We'll go with unique. Obviously, this man has lived a very unique life, and as unique as it is, I think it really does describe the time and place that he lived in. It's really important to remember this particular time and place because a lot of like British people really like to paint themselves as like, you know, we were one of the first nations to abolish slavery, and we kind of led the movement, and the US was the last to do that, and that's why we're better. And there's definitely this like undercurrent of belief system that I think the UK public education system like teaches almost directly, but that's not really true. Slavery ends when there's no economic need for it. So because the UK had entered industrialization at an earlier point than other countries. That's why slavery naturally became less of an economic necessity. So then it became easier for the anti-slavery movements to gain a foothold. So this particular, you know, like I obviously read a lot about slavery in the United States, but we can't forget that slavery was a worldwide, or not worldwide, but European-wide phenomenon, and all the colonizing powers used slavery. So this isn't an exclusively American thing. So I think it's really important for this time and place to remember it. Alrighty, number 4, the complex, groundbreaking one. I also don't have a copy of this one, but it's The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. I just read some of her novellas for a book club and realized like her writing's not that intimidating, and everyone always says The Second Sex is super intimidating. And I don't know, I feel like maybe I heard that when I was like 16 years old and just internalized it to the point where I forgot that like maybe 15 years later, I'm a more advanced reader and I can handle complex books. And I mean, it's big, it's a chunky book, but it's like such a standard classic feminist book that, you know, I can slap on the audiobook and listen to it. If I don't like it, it's fine. I mean, I know a lot of it's very dated and you know, very like white feministy and things like that, but should still read it. It's a classic for a reason, right? Number 5, the ones with the archetypal characters. So this one I'm super excited for. So I'm right now rereading Emily Wilson's translation of the Odyssey. And I really just picked this up because I was in Greece in August and I was just like, oh, I should probably read this like around this time because I'm, you know, in Greece. And I just like didn't even realize that her translation of the Iliad was coming out in September. And I don't know what made me like check, because I feel like every year or two I was checking to see when this book was coming out. And it is finally here. People, I'm so excited for it. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen more of it on YouTube or BookTube, but basically Emily Wilson's translation, like I knew it would be good before I even picked it up, but as I'm reading it, I'm like genuinely shocked at how good it is. It's so modern in the best way. Like it's not like a modern retelling, obviously, but the translation is just good. I think that so many people assume translations of ancient texts have to sound ancient to our English ears. And that's not true. Like these texts were not written to sound fancy pants in the original Greek. They were just stories that were written down in relatively basic language. I mean, obviously it could be beautiful, but it's not meant to be obscure. It was never meant to be obscure. It was meant to be a story told orally for everyone to enjoy. And just like these academic people try to make everything sound fancy, and it's like it makes it obscure and not accessible to everyone. So this translation is not only feminist. I'll link an article down below explaining why she's the first woman to translate this into English, why all the male translations are just like inherently sexist and inaccurate, truly inaccurate because of their sexist mindset. And so this one is amazing, and I'm really, really looking forward to the Iliad. That one I haven't got yet. I actually ordered a signed copy, and it's in America, so so I have to wait a little bit on that one. But once I get to it, I'm gonna be really happy. Alrighty, so let's move on to number 6, the one that's a complete one-off, Invisible Man. So honestly, I didn't know this, but Invisible Man is Ralph Ellison's only novel, and he actually wrote a second novel and it got burned in a fire, which is kind of a bummer. I have been meaning to read this for a really long time, and I just need to pick it up. That's really the only thing stopping me. I tried reading it like at the very start of COVID and was like, no, not working. But now obviously I'm in a different mindset, and I just didn't realize that this was his only real novel. So yeah, it's a bummer, but I'm excited to finally read this one. And then for number 7, the one we quote from all the time. So of course, you know, the most quotable author in the English language is Shakespeare, but I didn't really have a specific Shakespeare in mind. But actually maybe 2 months ago, I said to myself, you know what, every Shakespeare play I own is in storage in California. I'm probably not going to get to it anytime soon. Maybe it's time to think about, you know, replenishing my stock if I'm going to start reading Shakespeare. But then I decided I wanted to pick the exact right edition, because I don't want, you know, I want them to all match, and I don't want to start with the wrong one and then have to switch in the middle and repurchase and all that stuff. So I was like trying to do my research, finding out which one's best. And I think I've chosen Arden. Please share down below if you have any other preferences, why you would want another one besides Arden. I definitely, you know, have very specific tastes, but I won't go into all the details you know, because that's a little excessive for this video. But I definitely want like good notes without it being like too much. And yeah, I think Arden just kind of fits the bill on that one. So, yeah, and as for, I think I picked out my first Shakespeare, and it was going to be A Midsummer's Night Dream, because I have not actually read that one. I've read probably at least like 4 to 6 for in school, you know, like when I was young. I haven't actually read any on my own, willingly, let's say. So I thought that would be a really fun one to start with. And yeah, and I actually don't know any quotes from A Midsummer's Night Dream, but Shakespeare in general, right? Number 8, the rediscovered classic or the book you believe should be a classic in the future. So this one was particularly hard to do based off a TBR because you can't really you know, say, oh, this should be a classic since you haven't even read it. But I did come up with 2 options, actually. I couldn't decide. So the first is The Gilda Stories by Joelle Gomez. And that one is all about how this like Black woman, she escapes slavery in the 1850s in the United States. And then she gets like taken in by this like vampire family. And she like just, I don't know, it's like her story for like 200 years. And it's definitely like a spooky season thing. And I think my book club's going to read it for next year. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then the second one is Lucy by Jamaica Kincaid. I'd read A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid and I really enjoyed it. You know, it's a nonfiction commentary on white Westerners vacationing on tropical islands, but Lucy is the one novel that I picked out as the next one I want to read from her, and it's about this young Black girl who's a nanny, and she's just like figuring herself out, and it just seems like a very nice coming of age story that might turn into a classic. I don't know. It was published in 1990, so we'll see. So yeah, those are the 2 I've picked out for a rediscovered classic or a book I should maybe believe will be a classic in the future. Obviously, I can't decide right now, but I'm hoping that I'll enjoy both of them. And that's the last prompt. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks again, Erin, for tagging me. I'm so bad at tagging people. This is why I don't do tags. It's like, it stresses me out having to tag people. So please feel free to tag yourself if you want to do this tag. I think it's a fun tag and I'm really curious to hear people's different favorite classics. And I think this is a really fun way to talk about classics in like these prompts are really great for getting us to think about what kind of classics and also what function classics should really fulfill. Because if it's just, oh, it's a classic because it's a classic, like if a book can't fit into one of these, like, I don't know, like, you know. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!